Listener discretion is advised.
Entirely passable.
All right. You are listening to Wine and Crime, the podcast where three friends chug wine, chat true crime, and unleash their worst Minnesotan accents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm Kenyon.
I'm Lucy.
I'm Amanda.
And this is our first Patreon exclusive video episode. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you loved watching us on video on Facebook for the last 10 episodes or so that we put out, and most people did, though a lot of trolls didn't, but I kind of lived for it.
I loved reading
on
those.
Facebook.
Yeah, the
Did
trolls
not
are my
appreciate.
fave. But
Trashy.
Now the trolls will have to support on Patreon at any level to access video episodes of the show. Every main episode of the show will be on Patreon on video.
Don't make that promise just yet.
Maybe not every
main
as
one.
As many as we can stand to do.
I will
Yeah.
be pushing forward on video hard. I'll be your video champion, listeners. You can count on me. Maybe some episodes will just be me in video and not the other two.
People would like it. People would be on board, I think.
We'll make it work. But yeah, just so you know, now to access video content, head over to patreon.com/Wine and Crime Podcast. Right?
Yeah.
Is that that's
Yeah.
the link, right?
I think that's the link, or Wine and Crime Pod. One of
One
those
of those.
two.
Search for Wine and Crime on
Google
Patreon.
And yeah, any amount of donation monthly on up, from $1 a month on up, you get full access to all the bonus content.
Get it?
All right, so this week we have a very special fan pick brought to you by Emily Mitchell.
Oh.
And Emily is dedicating this topic to their twin sister, Amanda.
What?
There's another person named Amanda.
There's
There can
more
only
than
be
one.
one.
Oh, God.
And the topic is sister crimes.
Oh, man.
Also, Emily writes, Mansky, Mano Mango Berry, I love you. Thank you for always being there for me. You are the best friend a girl could ask for. Love, Emsky.
Aw, that's nice.
Mansky and Emsky. So, sister crimes, and I loved this topic. This was awesome.
My case is horrific, so get ready
Mine's
for the
pretty
wine.
fucked up too, but there are moments of levity.
I don't think
Well,
mine have a single
Let's
moment.
get to the wine so I can get
Yeah.
through this.
Yeah.
What is our wine crime pairing? Mansky, Mango Berry.
Mango Berry here. This week we are drinking Winc Wine Club's Yay Tempranillo, because it reminded me of the Divine Secrets of the Ya Sisterhood.
Yeah.
Which is way less dark
Yeah.
than the stories that we'll be covering today. So grab your wine. Quick reminder for those just joining us, welcome, we're sorry, and head to trywinc.com/gals, that's TRYWINC.com/gals, to get $20 off your first order of Winc wines. It's an online wine club that delivers wine to your door.
I also feel like we should open every episode with welcome. We're sorry.
We apologize, but also we are continuing exactly as before.
And we're going to make it right by leading you to become a member of Winc Wine Club. It's amazing. If you do become a member, which all three of us have been now for several years, you get member pricing, you get all these amazing recommendations. They learn what you like and they make recommendations for you. Put 4 or more bottles in your cart, which is so easy to do. And they take care of the shipping. And as long as you are 21 and they deliver to your state or your local Walgreens, you're good to go. You can also buy a la carte. It makes an amazing gift. You know, it's just the gift of wine. Give it to yourself. Give it to a friend. So yeah,
And
check it
I
out.
live in a state now that Winc
Is in the United States.
Is in the United States, but also that Winc cannot ship to, so they can't ship to Kentucky. So I'm having my wine shipped to a Walgreens across the river in Indiana
I love it.
and
Nice.
picking it up once a month, and I'm very excited.
Cheat that system, girl.
Smart.
So this Tempranillo is sourced from high elevation vineyards that are organically farmed. We love an organic farm. The wide swing in temperatures from day to day and into night provides grapes that have great quality and ripe tannins. And this wine leads with bright red fruit that's balanced with savory herb and a touch, just a kiss, just a whisper of oak. So it's fruit forward with an earthy balance, has a nice dry finish, and this Spanish red clocks in at 13% ABV. Such a beautiful balanced wine. I am so excited. And it's a crack. So you don't even have to struggle through the hardships of your life to get it open. And Lucy is going to do the honors today in cracking a wine since I didn't wait and this wine is already open.
Since I needed some assistance to finish my case.
Yeah.
I'm drinking a different Winc wine because
Ooh.
it's all I drink anymore.
I
Okay, here we
love
go.
all of their rosés.
Yeah, that's a
They're
really good
so
rosé.
good.
Yeah, this is the Coco Marrow Rosé.
Yum.
Okay, here we go. I just put lotion on. Fuck. Okay. Okay, here we go.
Oh!
Yay! Nice
Nice crack.
Soft
Fisty
and
crack.
velvety crack.
I just put lotion on every time.
Ugh.
Every time.
Oh, God. I just took a bath in essential oils and I just slid across my hardwood floors to get into my office and now I can't get this wine open. No, just me.
Oh, I too am in an office.
I'm in an Airbnb, so I get to drink out of a mug.
Cheers. Love it.
Cheers.
Okay, so Lucy, what is our background and maybe psych for sister crimes? Is it basically just a rant about your sister?
Sister.
Who you used
sister.
to have.
Never know how much I miss her.
Shockingly. First of all, I would like to say this is not my normal recording space, so if I look kind of weird, maybe dark, maybe there's trash behind me, it's because Iowa, a swath of Iowa, got fucking wrecked
Yes.
by what is essentially a hurricane. It was Category 3 hurricane winds. Destroyed Cedar Rapids and like Marshalltown, eastern cities, but kind of fucked up Des Moines too. So I didn't have power for 5.5 days. Still don't have internet.
It's really bad. Iowa is like #1 in corn, soy, and pig production, and crops have been so devastated by this storm that you can literally see the broken down crops from this storm from space.
Yeah, I sent these guys this picture from NASA. It's just like a bald spot on Iowa.
So
Iowa has alopecia now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, like, if you think this doesn't affect you because you don't live in the Midwest or live in Iowa, like, it will because
It
a
does.
lot
Just
of crop
wait.
has been completely destroyed.
43% of our crops. And I don't know about the percentage of pork production. I don't know that they know yet, but like, think of all those plants that have live pigs and also just pork meat, unable to refrigerate it. Huge losses. The food chain is fucked. The infrastructure is fucked. So if you can do anything to help out, particularly residents of Cedar Rapids, Marshalltown, Quad Cities, those areas, they need it. It's going to be several weeks before they get electricity. And
Which is just what we need in the middle of a global pandemic is
I saw some news
hundreds
about
of thousands of folks without power.
I heard the
Millions.
words fire tornado earlier today, and I'm like, can we just get a fucking break? Just
Sharknado.
Yeah.
so anyway, I'm also trying not to yell because I'm in like a collective working space. There's other people here, so. But I have my wine. And I also have a candle, but I can't find any matches.
Oh, honey,
So
just sniff it every
sniff
once
it.
in a while. Yeah, just go deep in
Just
there.
huff that extinct candle.
Yeah.
It's like vanilla. It's not a good dry smell. Anyway.
Muff it.
Okay, so first we have to address the elephant in the room. Never gonna let you go, sister.
I used to fucking love that show.
So Zach, when I told him the topic of this topic, he was like, what if you guys purposely went the entire episode without referencing sister, Tia and Tamara, and had your fans just lose their damn minds? And I was like, no.
I'd lose my damn mind.
We couldn't.
I have had that theme song stuck in my head for weeks.
It's so good.
It's so good. So, Sister, the show, the WB hit, ran for 5 years, which was
amazing.
6 whole seasons, and I feel like that's incredible.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. So, the show stars Tia and Tamara Mowry, who play twins Tia Landry and Tamara Campbell, identical twins who were separated at birth and reunited at a shopping mall 14 years later.
Oh,
love it.
So good.
So, this is the synopsis of the premise from Wikipedia, and I just think I thought
Can we just
really
only
funny.
have this be your segment, and then once you're done reading the synopsis, it's just, okay, moving on, and then we get into brutal murder?
It's the majority of my segment, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, this is from the Sister Wikipedia page. Quote, Tia Landry, played by Tia Mowry, is the intelligent twin from inner city Detroit, where her adoptive mother, Lisa, played by Jackée Harry, works as a seamstress. Tamara Campbell, played by Tamara Mowry, is the boy-crazy twin from the suburbs, where her adoptive father, Ray, played by Tim Reed, owns a successful limousine service. After their unexpected reunion, Ray reluctantly allows Tia and Lisa to move in because Lisa was about to take a job in St. Louis, which would have separated the girls yet again. The girl's neighbor is nerdy Roger Evans, an annoying teenager who's infatuated with both of them. Because really, what's the difference?
Ish. And every like sitcom around this time like had an Urkel because of like the popularity of
They
seeing
were
Urkel as a character.
Yeah.
So nerdy Roger Evans evolves into a perfect gentleman that they both find attractive. What could go wrong? In the final season, when the girls go off to college, Roger ceases to appear in the series because he was still in high school, though he does return as a guest in the final episode. In the 6th season episode called Father's Day, the twins meet their biological father. Okay, I forgot how kind of fucked up the end of this show turned into.
Well, I was
weren't they
gonna
both
ask because
adopted?
Neither
they were both
parent is the
biological parent.
Correct.
Parent.
Neither
right?
Lisa nor
Tim.
Ray.
No, the single mother. We'll get to it. The twins meet their biological father, Matt Sullivan, a white, famous photojournalist who never married their mother, Russell Gavin. Okay, so yes, it is.
Yeah, they were both adopted, I think.
Both adopted out. Because they never got the chance.
Okay.
Reason enough, I guess.
Because he's a piece of shit who chose his
stuff
career
came
over
up.
his familial responsibilities.
We'll get to it. She was asked to paint a mural in Florida, and he was assigned to, quote, the opportunity of a lifetime in the Middle East.
Vague.
When he left, Russell told him she'd join him in Tel Aviv, but never mentioned her pregnancy, and after 6 months, she just stopped writing. When she died, Matt wasn't allowed to see the girls because he couldn't prove he was their father because it was 1996.
Right.
Actually, it was like 92.
Yeah.
And when he searched for them later, he never found them because they had been adopted separately. So I'm fully in the mood to watch reruns, and I've heard rumors of like a remake, like a Netflix.
I think they are rebooting it. Yeah.
Okay, well, 2020 is not all bad if we're getting a sister reboot.
Well,
I don't think it'll air in 2020. That's a 2021 ray of light at the end of the tunnel.
We really need 2021 to fucking bring it. Okay,
Yeah.
bring it.
Enough of this fucking shit.
I personally like a refund. If we can just like tack on an extra year of life, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Like to
this year
speak
doesn't
with the
count.
manager. Okay, so the word sister is derived from Proto-Germanic swester. Swester,
Svester.
swester.
Svester, Svester.
You're all Uncle Fester.
I love Svester, Svester.
The term has been adopted colloquially to mean a close kinship, and some publishers prefer the term female sibling over sister to avoid confusion. Speaking of which, there are varied opinions on whether the term sister or sis can be appropriated by white people because it's been popularized largely by the LGBTQ community and also the Black community. So this is a section from a Vice article. Not that, like, Vice is the greatest, but, you know, cultural issues.
I think it's just safe to assume that anything like trendy or catchy we got from like Black women. Let's just assume that.
And
they have
LGBTQ
created
community.
everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it's appropriate to be like, "Hey sis."
You know,
I don't do it, but I don't know. If it gives me pause, I just avoid.
Right.
just be aware of who you are as the speaker and who your audience is, and maybe take this person's advice into consideration. Quote, Nicole R. Holliday, an assistant linguistics professor at Pomona College. I want a Paloma.
Oh,
Yeah,
me
that
too.
sounds really good.
Asserts that while we have a shared understanding of what the words mean, we process meaning, especially for things that are more social, within its context. She believes that cis, in addition to being a religious title, represents kinship and power amongst marginalized groups, especially in the LGBTQ community. So she says, for gay men, cis is subversive because they challenge hegemonic masculinity. By calling each other women, they're taking back power, saying, well, fuck this structure. We have our own thing. It's kind of like certain words said casually within the Black community, or like women calling each other bitch. It's just, it's like a identifiable, it's
right, when you're like
it's
mocked.
a term within an in-group.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're like mocked and made fun of for being effeminate in the LGBTQ community, I could see how using that terminology and
Takes the
using
power
feminine
back.
language takes the power back. I think that makes sense.
In its most recent iteration, we've seen cis go from a devout term with religious overtone to Black LGBTQ nomenclature that captures a sense of endearment and communalism sacred to the community. Quote, I think that the thing about the internet and meme culture specifically is that usually it tends to try and tackle really, really big subjects with one word, like cis, for example, says Miles E. Johnson, Afropunk's senior content editor.
I've been to Afropunk.
Great.
It was really fun.
Proud of you.
I didn't call anyone cis.
Okay. So I think the real thing that's happening around the world, around the word cis, is this gender revolution, that kind of non-binary conversation. So again, it is completely appropriate and welcome in certain communities, but again, just be aware of who you are and what the context is that you're using any word, really.
And the same thing also with brother, which I feel like is more... There are lines and boundaries on who can use the word brother for
like
a friend
the
or
term
like colloquially.
Bro is much more like,
Race
very
neutral.
Right. But the term brother or sister, I always associate with the BIPOC community embracing each other as a marginalized group, and I would not personally use that language.
Yeah. It's also kind of this article was talking about how, like, if we can adapt the word guys as like a gender neutral term, like, oh hey guys, I call you two guys all the time. It's kind of along the same lines, but at the same time, I'm trying to be more aware about when and how I use the word guys, just because, patriarchy.
Yeah, I
for sure.
completely axed it from my vernacular. But working in the service industry for so long, like, really drives that home, because you don't want to assume any, like, gender of the guests that you're approaching. So I just, like, completely trained myself to only say folks or y'all. That's it. I didn't use any other ones because you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you're misgendering somebody.
Yeah.
So
I definitely still say it, but it's not. Yeah,
It's harder to break out of when you're not
almost.
like in a job where you have
Right.
to think. Like I learned to do it over a lot of interactions throughout every single day
Right.
of my life.
Right.
It's a lot harder in other ways to retrain your language.
Also, a person that I know, very, very artsy, earthy, bizarro person. I think she's an art teacher, actually. She uses the word Gaias because apparently Gaia is like, I think it means like goddess or something like that, but it's just like instead of guys, because it really kind of flows out of your mouth every once in a while, like guys. So she just kind of switches to Gaias. And I love it.
It's weird and confusing, and I hate it.
Sorry, Gaias.
I like it. Sorry, guys.
That's probably problematic in its own way, but I haven't unpacked it yet.
I don't trust it.
Okay, so culturally, it's not uncommon for a girl child to be protected by her brothers, in particular older brothers, from perceived sexual or violent advances because patriarchy, and also like blurred line between sexual and violent advances a lot of times. Speaking of which, there are studies that show that a girl with brothers has all sorts of unique issues.
Oh.
There was a study about 10 years ago by Australian behavioral ecologists Fritha Milne and Deborah Judge, where they recruited nearly 200 women and 76 men, all living in or around the city of Perth, Australia, and asked them questions about their family lives and sexual development. The results were that girls with only younger brothers lost their virginity an average of more than a year later, like than the average, than girls with younger sisters only.
Because they grow up knowing exactly how disgusting boys are, and they
Yeah.
want nothing
We'll
to
get
do
to
with
it.
They
it.
just want an extra year away from.
Yeah.
There are theories. We'll get to it. Girls with both younger brothers and sisters lost it, had sex for the first time.
Yeah, exactly, because virginity is fake.
You're right. Nearly 2 years later on average than girls with no younger siblings at all. And also having younger sisters by themselves had no impact on average age of first sexual experience.
What about one older sister, no brothers?
We'll get to it.
Good. I want to know
15.
where I fall on the average.
The chastity effect, as it's called, only applied to girls with younger brothers. Having a big brother or sister did not make a girl any less likely to hold on to her virginity. I hate how this is phrased.
Yeah, this is terribly written, but I get what
This
they're saying.
is a Psychology Today article. These
Do
are not my
better.
words. I fucking
Psychology
phoned it in
Today.
because I did not have internet for a week.
That's fair.
And still
I
don't.
don't mean you do better. I mean Psychology Today do
Yeah.
better. Not
Yeah,
you.
this
You're
was
doing
back
great.
in 2011, which seems like a fucking eternity ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so having a big brother or sister, so like an older sibling, did not make a girl any less likely to hold off on having sex for the first time. Yet another strange pattern emerged. This one involved the girl's physical maturity.
Oh, great. Here we
So
go.
the more older brothers a girl had, the later she got her first period. Girls with only elder brothers got their first visit from Aunt Flo. Again,
Ish.
fucking awful.
What?
Up to a year later than girls with older sisters or no older siblings. And this is meaningful given that breast cancer and other conditions are related to earlier menstruation.
Okay.
This is interesting and bizarre.
I mean,
Really
I
bizarre.
kind of get it with the siblings thing because, like, with the siblings with ovaries, because you do tend to cycle with
Right.
people that you live in the same home with. So that
So maybe
kind of
that
makes sense
brings
to me.
on menstruation a little earlier.
And I think I was 13 when I got my first period. So that's pretty average, I'd say. But
It
by the
depends.
time-
It changes.
But by the time I got my first period, my older sister was already, I think, in college. Yeah, because we're 5 years apart. So
Okay,
I
well,
don't
there's
think
more information here,
that
so
had
you can
much to do with
continue
it.
to analyze.
I'm just confused.
So elder brothers delay physiological maturation while younger brothers delay behavioral maturation. Daughters are often caregivers. Historically, as has been found in traditional societies, a woman with daughters as first or second born children has a larger family than a mom whose first children were sons. Elder daughters take care of younger siblings, which frees up mom to keep fucking popping them out.
Well, also because in a lot of patriarchal societies, you keep having kids until you get a boy.
Yep.
So that makes sense. Whereas if your first two are boys,
You already
you
check.
can be done, you know, an heir and a spare, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think, like, historically, though, the average size of a family was significantly larger than it is now, just because there are lots of, like, agricultural reasons.
Yeah.
Boys historically required more resources than girls, which made a big sister's contributions even more important. And as a result, these helpful elder daughters experience a delay in starting their own families. But that doesn't really address the sexuality thing. So, according to this article, this is unknown territory. So, Milne and Judge, the two researchers, they tread lightly here what they assert about that aspect of it. The safest theory is that the delays are behavioral. Girls with little brothers lose their virginity later because they're too busy taking care of their siblings to have love lives of their own. Perhaps little brothers who are slower than female siblings to develop and reach puberty keep their elder sisters in more of a childish mindset, or perhaps the stress of caregiving slows down puberty.
Fair.
The researchers should also consider a much more surprising yet equally plausible theory, my favorite theory,
Ooh, okay.
that brothers send out chemical cues or pheromones in their sweat that inhibit their sister's sexual development. So as odd as it sounds, this would explain the perplexing finding that girls with older brothers get their first periods later than their peers. And it appears so do girls who grow up with their biological fathers in the household compared with their peers that do not have their biological father living with them.
So men ruin everything. The theory holds up.
Oh,
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily to menstruate later or have sex later. That kind of sounds great.
Yeah.
Men ruin everything.
So, okay, here's the best paragraph. The sweat stifles sexuality theory isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. Other mammals, rodents, for instance, use pheromones to modulate sexual maturity and fertility in the population.
Rats are so sexually active.
Well, that's why they need.
But if they have too many, then they just eat
like
them.
this. Yeah. Over the years, a girl would inhale chemical cues in fraternal sweat. So, like all those dirty socks and armpit.
I hate that.
These chemicals would hit the hypothalamus of her brain where sex hormones are produced and just slow down the works.
They stink so bad.
Yeah.
They stink so bad that it affects a girl's brain.
That you're like not interested. Also, I wonder if it's to inhibit like incest.
Yes, that was my next sentence. Yep. So puberty then strikes a little bit later. Evolutionarily speaking, this allows the girl to stay in the family nest longer without conflict and reduces the risk of incest.
Aha.
So there's a lot of things going on here.
But also very interesting.
I'm so glad I have one sister and I don't even have to think about this shit.
Okay, so there are several studies that show the benefits of having an older sister, Madeline.
Are you listening?
Regardless of the younger siblings' genders. So older sisters are more likely to play with younger siblings and develop a tighter bond.
Not true.
Boys with older sisters are less likely to be delinquent or have emotional and behavioral disorders. Some studies also found a correlation between having an older sister and having constructive discussions about safe sexual practices.
Great.
And some studies have shown that men without sisters are more likely to be ineffectual at courtship and romantic relationships.
Well, yeah, because they other women so much, and it's like a foreign entity, and they like don't know how to interact. Whereas like boys with sisters, it's like, whatever. They're also a human being. They also, like, have bodily functions and have interests.
Yeah, I've heard
and
that
hobbies.
girl fart.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway,
Interesting.
do we want to listen to the Sister theme song again?
Yes, we
sure
do.
But also, my salad just arrived. I'll be right back. I'm not going to eat it right now, but I have to go get it. Hold on.
Play that soundtrack.
How much I miss you. Everybody knows I ain't never gonna let you go.
Yes.
Oh, oh, sister,
Who sings this song?
I ain't never gonna let you go, sister. I don't know who sings it. Let's find out.
That's pretty great.
Sister theme song artist. Here we go.
Sister.
Oh, this is from an article from 17 magazine, so we are on the right track.
Legit.
It was performed by Tia and Tamara Mowry.
Oh my God, that makes sense.
Shut the fuck
They're like
up.
a sextuple threat.
Oh my
Blossom
God.
hats. Overalls. Sisterhood.
Oh,
Twins.
no. They sang it in the last 2 seasons. The first 4 seasons were done by...
Well, now I'm upset.
Doesn't say.
Great.
It does not say.
Great.
Odd. Very odd.
Well,
Anyway, let's hear a word from
Milli Vanilli. Are we ready for my case?
yes.
Literally never. Let's go.
It's pretty gruesome, but there are some bright spots. Okay, so brothers Joseph and Henry Moiety had a similar taste in women. Spunky, full of life, good time gals.
Who doesn't love a good time gal?
Sound familiar?
Hello. Guilty.
An overbearing gal with an aggressively Minnesotan accent.
Pretty funny for a broad.
For two chicks. Kenyon and I have just fused into one.
Into one chick.
Yep.
Oh my
First of
God.
all, there
One
are
good time gal.
3 of us. We introduce ourselves at the top of every episode.
Also, if you like this show and listen, please go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts because all
Even
the
if it's a
haters
1-star.
take the time to do it.
Yeah. Seriously.
Okay.
All the Allens and the Karens.
All right. So it was New Orleans. In the 1920s, after all, and the Moiety brothers' wives, Teresa and Leonidi, embodied the flapper girl personality, albeit with more limited financial means and bigger bosoms.
And huge tits.
And huge knockers. Huge tracts of land.
Tits like 2 battleships.
So both couples met and married in New Iberia, Louisiana, before moving together to New Orleans. 33-year-old Joseph and 25-year-old Henry worked odd jobs, quote, described by sources as shiftless and perpetually short on funds.
I mean, hi.
The Amanda Jacobson story.
Yeah.
Shiftless.
Shiftless soldier of fortune.
So, Henry had worked as a butcher in the past, but it doesn't sound like he was really able to hold down steady work. And at this time, he was described as a sign painter. So just kind of like doing odd jobs, getting money where they could, not making much.
figuring it out.
Shiftless.
Shiftless. Teresa and Leonidi, therefore, also had to work to provide for their families, and they took on sewing jobs in addition to looking after all the kids, so they have to work 2 shifts for their shiftless husbands. Mm-hmm. And to save money, both married couples lived together, so along with Teresa and Henry's 3 young children and Leonidi and Joseph's son and daughter. So we've got 2 married couples and 5 kids living in the same apartment.
Sounds like hell. I need 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms to have one other person in my apartment with me.
Yeah.
Without fucking murdering him.
Can't.
Love you, baby.
So
Can't, but moreover, won't.
Whoa.
Yes.
So this was a small apartment on Ursulines Avenue in the French Quarter, and the building is still there, I think. So things are really tight, but fortunately, the 2 sisters-in-law were best friends, and they were absolutely inseparable. So they got along super well. So my case is actually sisters-in-law, but whatever.
It's brothers.
Brothers crimes. Yeah. The 2 women even
Brothers,
looked
wives,
alike,
crimes.
although I don't believe Teresa and Leonidi were actually related, but there's a photo of them on the drive, and they look like twins.
Well, if you hang out, oh my God.
Yeah? Do you see?
Yep, I see it.
It's the austere visage and the crazy
The
hair.
Lots of, like, curly, thick, long black hair.
And they both have a similar jawline, like
Yeah.
a very intense jaw. And also, the child in between them is miserable.
Well,
That kid is a
no.
mood.
I don't think things are going well at home, and we will get to it. So,
Oh.
after Joseph walked in on Leonidi, embracing another man, those 2 separated. But to be precise, the cheating Leonidi actually kicked him out.
Go, girl.
I'm over it.
I'm done with you now. Get the fuck out. And then she continued to live with Teresa, Henry, and the kids. So
Okay.
Messy as fuck.
So one brother's out. And then the remaining ones, they basically formed their own, like, reconstituted nuclear family without Joseph.
Sure.
Although, quote, Henry fretted over Leonidi's influence over his wife, Teresa. So he's like, now the women are ganging up on him.
Yeah, I mean, if Leonidi
As we are wont to do.
is staunch enough to cheat and then also kick out her husband, what could she get Teresa to do?
Well, we will get to it. So, by all accounts, Teresa and Henry's marriage wasn't much better than the other pairs to begin with.
Brothers will be brothers.
Quote, the 2 bored wives started kicking up their heels, bringing men home when Henry was away.
Okay, I kind of love it. Kick up your heels, girls. It was
They
the
sound
20s.
fun.
Your life
They
is garbage.
sound super fun. Also, it's possible that they were selling sex in order to, like, feed their kids because their drunken husbands couldn't. But whatever. They were also
No shame,
they were
ladies. Do your thing.
definitely having, like, love affairs, but then also possibly selling sex. Henry would later admit that he, quote, knew his wife openly cavorted with other men.
Love it.
In particular, around the time of this case, October 1927, Teresa was seen by neighbors on the back steps of their apartment building, passing notes and, quote, hugging a local man named Joseph Caruso.
Hugging his penis with their
Everybody's
mouths.
hugging.
love
Lick
it.
my wand.
Others spotted the 2 lovers walking in public, hand in hand, and even engaging in, quote, friendly excursions on streetcars.
So not hiding it at all.
Nope.
I
Not
love
even
that
trying.
it was like they were seen holding hands and even riding a streetcar
Riding
together.
on streetcars.
That's hot.
But ashamed and embarrassed, Henry refused to discuss his wife's obvious romantic indiscretions, even though it was, like, common knowledge.
Talk
in
of
the
the town.
streetcar.
The streetcar. God.
This friendly encounters on streetcars. I mean, the
I'd watch that
brazenness.
porn.
The goal.
So Teresa and Leonidi also enjoyed going out on the town together without their husbands,
It's a lot more fun when you leave the men at home.
It's
Ladies,
the best
leave your
way to
man
go
at
out
home.
on the town.
right?
The only way.
And on the day in question, which was between October 26th and October 27th, 1927, Teresa told Henry that she and Leonidi planned to go out that evening and that he had to look after the kids.
Yep. It's not babysitting when they're your own children.
When
You're
they're
just a
yours.
parent.
It's just parenting. But obviously, being told and not asked to take care of his own fucking children was a step too far for Henry. He's okay with his wife cheating on him rampantly, but he will not take care of his
Dare you
own
tell
children.
me to raise my child?
And
What a dick.
And so he decided to pawn the kids off on the housekeeper while he went off to get drunk. So, yep. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
For
So-
real.
Despite the Moities' modest means, they were still able to employ a part-time housekeeper, a neighbor lady named Nettie Compass, and this was actually super common for the time. So Henry goes bar hopping, and throughout the evening, as he gets progressively drunker and drunker, he also is like stewing with rage.
Yup. He's pissed at his wife.
And then it's assumed that he overhears the rumor that is floating around the neighborhood that his wife Teresa is supposedly planning to run off with Joseph Caruso that night. And so
Ruh-roh.
on his way home, Henry stops to buy a sugar cane knife.
What is that?
Like those, like a
Like a machete, basically. There's a photo on the
Oh.
drive.
Like a scythe?
Kind of,
Lord.
yeah. Mm-hmm. And not good. But then, to his surprise, when he gets home, the sisters-in-law are actually there. So either they went out on the town and they came home really early, or they didn't go out after all. And so he's seemingly assuaged. And everybody's hungry, so they all go out as a family to eat hot tamales.
Hot dogs.
But whether it was the spicy cokes or the hot tamales, either way, after the women and the children go to sleep that night, Henry's rage begins to boil over all over again.
Uh-oh.
The following day, housekeeper Nettie Compass comes by the flat to clean and is greeted by, quote, a scene of bloody disarray.
Ooh. My favorite kind of disarray.
Blood spilled out from two large trunks, one in the living room and one in the back bedroom. Terrified and frantic, Nettie went for help and happened upon two insurance salesmen who accompanied her back into the apartment and then bore witness to the rest of the gruesome discoveries.
Why in the 20s was there like always conveniently an insurance salesman nearby?
A dictionary salesman.
Yes,
Yeah.
there was just a fleet of
you guys-
door-to-door sales.
Do you guys watch Selling Sunset?
Yes.
Have you seen the latest season, all of it?
No, I'm savoring it.
Okay.
I also don't have internet, so I haven't watched it lately.
Well, I'm not giving anything away, but there's an episode where Chriselle is talking about how she used to be a door-to-door knife salesperson.
Oh yeah, I almost worked for
Chriselle.
Cutco Knives before discovering it's definitely an MLM, but I was like 16 and did
you
not know
sold
what I was
them
doing.
or you bought them?
No, I went to an interview to sell them,
Yeah.
thinking I was, because they made the want ad look so much like a normal interview process, like a group interview. And then it starts as a group interview, at least this is how it was in like 2005, 2006. And then afterward, they like choose the most promising ones from the group interview. And then you do a one-on-one interview. And by the end of the one-on-one interview, where they're like singing your praises and saying how much potential you have, they're trying to get you to buy the knife set because you have to buy your own to
sample.
take out door to door and sample it. And I was like, bye.
I I don't have money.
I came here to make money. I don't have $250 to drop on a fucking knife set just so I can work for you.
And they're like, before you go, are you interested in a timeshare?
No. I was
How about
pissed.
some leggings?
And it was like a seminar. This interview took like 3.5 hours. It was like half a fucking day. I was so mad.
Yep. Well, Chriselle used to sell knives door to door,
Great.
which is not something you want to buy door to door.
No.
Not really.
Someone knocks on your door, they're just holding two fistfuls
It's just
of
Edward
knives.
Scissorhands, like confused.
Okay, so Nettie gets help. They go back into the apartment. Quote, this is a quote from one of the insurance salesmen years later in his
One of the Cutco
memoir.
guys.
Quote, we found red stains on the floor and saw a large trunk in a bedroom partially open. When I pulled up the trunk lid, a woman's body, arms and legs severed from the torso, was exposed.
No.
So was it just the torso, or was it all of it just cut apart?
Cut up and crammed into this trunk.
Oh.
Ugh.
And the same scene was repeated in a second trunk in the bedroom. So one woman per trunk.
It takes a lot of time to cut up a body. I feel like
Yeah, you got to
also
be
feel like
motivated to cut
To
a
cut
chicken.
a chicken. This was an all-night
people
endeavor.
can definitely hear me in other offices.
Paging
It takes
Dr.
a
Nandy
lot of time to cut up
cut
a
up a
body.
body. Selling knives door to door.
Back to the gruesome description. Clumps of hair were scattered on the floor,
No.
along with children's clothing, quote, unfinished sewing projects, the women's lace garments, silk stockings, and beauty cream. So basically, I think he took everything out of this trunk
Oh, 1,000%.
and
Dumped
threw it on
out.
the ground. Yeah.
Yup.
And
Classic
also,
man.
yeah. And also there's a theory that the trunks were packed because the women were planning to leave.
To leave. Yup.
So it's possible. The trio then phoned the coroner, and several reporters also caught wind of the situation and showed up on the scene because what was a crime scene in 1927?
Right. Traipse through and
Yeah.
get your pics for the Daily Herald.
Yeah, may as well have your press conference while you're collecting evidence.
Yep.
It was a female reporter who discovered 4, quote, lady fingers lying on the bed.
The dessert?
I was going to say, there are those little
I know.
cake breads.
I'm wondering, I didn't have time to look this up, but I'm wondering if the dessert was named after this
No.
case was reported.
I don't know, because I think ladyfingers were around before the 1927.
But I'm Googling it.
Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, these were literal lady fingers, not
I
the
hate
dessert.
that.
Lying
And
on the bed.
also, I want ladyfingers. I'm Googling this.
These belong to Teresa, although her wedding ring was, quote, later retrieved from a gaping wound in her back.
Nope. No.
So he literally took off her ring and probably threw it in the trunk,
Ugh.
would be my guess.
Also, lady fingers date back to the late 15th century, so that's
Never
not where
mind.
this came from.
All right. So the murder weapon, the sugarcane knife, was abandoned on Teresa's torso in one of the trunks. Quote, in a turn worthy of pulp fiction, a manuscript written in Leonides' hand was discovered hidden in the cabinet of her bedroom. Rife with grammatical errors, its thinly veiled autobiographical story cautioned young girls to, quote, be careful, for marriage is a life sentence.
I mean, yeah.
I really want to get my permit to marry people, and I would definitely sprinkle little comments
Get
like that in
ordained.
the
The
vows.
other day-
Life sentence.
Bill and I, as I was preparing to pay my taxes for this year, I was like, we just need to get married because I'd save so much money on my taxes, and then I could finally get you that vasectomy that I want you to get. And he's just sitting there like, eyes agape. And I'm like, what? A tax marriage and having your dick snipped is not enough motivation to get on one knee and propose to me?
That's not romance enough for you.
I'm a realist, so kill me.
That is a modern that's a 2020 relationship.
I basically
if I've ever heard
proposed,
one.
and he basically said,
And so when's the wedding?
yeah.
He didn't say no.
He didn't say no. That's true. Should I just start planning it and be like, it's on this date?
I'm going to take your stunned silence as a yes.
Consent is key. We have to, consent is key. Okay, so back to this quote. So Leonidi had written this like fucking manuscript all about her life and how marriage sucks. Quote, the rejection slip from her submission to a popular confessions magazine lay in a pool of her own blood.
Oh, my.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Also, when people are like, why do you think true crime is so popular now? It has always been popular.
Yeah.
Look at this from a newspaper. This is vivid storytelling. Okay.
I'm so fucking into it.
So the double murders caused a sensation in the press, obviously, with Henry's past as a butcher frequently recalled.
No.
The Times-Picayune, is that how you say that? The Picayune, you know, whatever. The newspaper.
Never know.
Old-timey newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
Picayune.
Quote, gleefully pointed out that the manner in which the two bodies of the women were mutilated and dismembered indicated a man familiar with his trade.
Well, yeah, and he did it really quickly.
Pointed out.
Really quickly. Initially, Henry Moiti tried to make a run for it. Basically, then, like an all points bulletin, like an APB, went out alerting steamer ships.
This just in, butcher on the run. Ladyfinger.
Ladyfinger's found on the bed. 2 women found in trunks.
A rejection letter and a pool of her own blood.
Her rejection slip.
Oh, right, the slip.
So the APB alerted steamer ships to look out for a, quote, tattooed and singularly hairy stowaway.
So they thought he was going to try to get on a ship and like get
Europe.
off the land?
Yeah.
But he was tattooed and singularly hairy.
Also, like, maybe he was hairy, but there's a photo on the drive, and Henry was actually pretty hot.
Oh, no.
Sad to say. This horrible
I hate when
double
they're hot.
murderer, drunkard, terrible husband and father was pretty cute.
Oh, yeah.
He looks like
handsome.
Ken. He looks like a Ken
He looks
doll.
like a Ken doll. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
But a horrible monster.
Horrible. So, a massive manhunt through local swamps, though, soon discovered the suspect hiding out in Bayou Lafourche. I don't know how to say anything in New Orleans. At first, he said a, quote, red-headed Norwegian seafarer had committed the murders.
That's really specific for a bull-faced lie.
But less than a week later, he finally confessed everything to police, saying, quote, Joe Caruso took my wife. She was beautiful and I loved her. And, quote, if I ever get my hands on that Joe Caruso, I'll chop him up into little pieces. Not big pieces like my wife, but little pieces. I'll make him look like something that's been through a sausage mill.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, you're probably never going to get out of prison at this point,
Sir.
so...
We'll get to it.
Oh, good.
Jesus.
The sensational quote led to local rumors for years of a, quote, sausage ghost haunting the apartment at 715 Ursulines Avenue.
No.
Sausage ghost.
Can you imagine being like your legacy for this brutal murder is to be referred to as a sausage ghost for all of eternity? Like, that's the ultimate fuck you to this guy.
Wait, that was that's what they were calling the lady?
Well,
No.
things got kind of like mixed up in the rumor mill, basically, in the sausage mill. And
He was a butcher.
And yeah, basically
He
it
made
like
the
went through
sausage
the
mill
game of
comment.
telephone, and eventually people said that he had murdered the wife's lover, which he didn't, and then it just kind of grew from there.
Just a generic sausage ghost. I'm into it.
Yeah.
If it's a ghost that's just going to make and deliver sausages to you at all hours of the day
I
and
don't
night,
need accurate
the
details.
Uber of sausage ghosts.
I will sign that lease.
What if Hungry Ghost and Sausage Ghost got married?
They're sisters.
They're
Sister,
sisters?
sister. Okay. So,
Sausage sisters.
oh, that
Sausage
actually,
sisters-ish.
that was a topic of an episode. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Sausage sisters?
Somebody
like a
wanted it to
term
be
for
called
when
Sausage Sisters,
two
and we
women
changed
have-
it to like, but not butterfly kisses. What's it called?
Don't say it. I know what you're thinking of. It is not
there's
appropriate.
an outdated term, but then there was another term that, whatever. Okay. I
Right.
don't know.
It's when two women have sexual intercourse with the same man, not necessarily at the same time. Then they're sausage sisters.
Right.
Sausage sisters.
Yeah. It all circles back.
It
I'm
all,
glad that none of us
this
are
is
sausage
a serialized
sisters. That's
podcast, actually.
Okay. So Henry was charged with each murder separately, but after being convicted of the first, I think of his wife's murder, then he pled guilty to Leonides' murder in order to avoid the death penalty and in the expense of a trial when he very clearly killed both of them.
Yeah.
Instead, in March 1928, he was given 2 life sentences. So he's packed off to prison. There, he's considered a model prisoner, except for the time that he escaped in 1944.
And was found selling Cutco knives door to door.
He was on the run for 20 months. But
He was a singularly hairy knife salesman.
model prisoner. But that little escapade seems to have been quickly forgiven because, unbelievably, Henry, with 2 life sentences and a jailbreak on his record, was granted clemency 1 year later and released from prison.
How?
The fuck?
Yep.
The 20s were wild.
Well, now this is the 40s, but yeah.
Oh,
So the perpetrator of the grisly trunk murders then moved west to California and tried to move on with his life. End of story? Not quite.
He opened a chain of restaurants called Sausage
Sausage
Ghosts.
King.
their specialty dessert was ladyfinger.
Ladyfingers.
Oh my.
No. Although I
Let's
did
move
find
to New
a
Orleans
recipe.
and open a restaurant that just sells sausage and ladyfingers.
I did find a lemon ladyfinger dessert recipe that I really want to make tonight. So I have to go to the store.
I will just
Meaning I
watch
have to
more
send Bill to
British
the
Bake
store.
Off and not bake anything. Okay.
I'm just going to finish this bottle of wine and call it a day.
In January 1956, so like 10 years after he was released from prison, a woman named Alberta Orange was staying in a Los Angeles hotel, and she called down to the front desk and exclaimed, "I've been shot."
She's the orange ghost.
Alberta
thing.
was Henry's second wife, and after having the audacity to ask her husband for some money to buy clothes, the wife murderer shot her in the chest.
Holy shit.
Jesus.
Alberta miraculously survived, and Henry was once again packed off to the big house. He was again a model prisoner, and even learned to paint while serving time in Folsom Prison. His portrait of notorious Louisiana Governor Huey Long hung in the governor's mansion for many years afterwards.
What? This is so
Bizarre.
ass backwards.
This is not fair.
Henry finally died in prison of a stroke a short while later after his second.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so that's my case. Fucking twists and turns.
Brother,
Brother. This guy
His brother
sucks.
sucks.
Okay.
Nice job.
Well,
Thanks.
thanks for that horrifying tableau.
I'm so hungry.
And now, shall we hear a word from our sponsors? LadyFingerDesserts.com.
Sarah Lee.
Sarah Lee. Nobody does it like Sarah Lee. Okay. So with the intention of a sweeter Tia and Tamara sister vibe, please prepare for a jarring change in tone as we move on to discuss the most prolific murder partnership in modern history.
Oh my God.
Yep. So as we know, statistically, women just don't kill people all that often. And even rarer is...
Or don't get caught.
Right, because we're better at covering it up. And even rarer is a family member situation like participating in murder together. Rarer still is female family members. So maybe the fact that this happens so rarely is a good thing for all of us, because the Gonzalez sisters, Delfina and Maria de Jesus, when they decided to kill, they left nearly 100 people dead, earning them the horrific title of, quote, most prolific murder duo in the known history of the world.
Oh my God.
Whoa. Cool. I have goosebumps.
I had not heard of these gals, and they actually popped up in the Family Tree episode that we did. Where
I thought this sounded a little familiar.
I found like they came up in the research, and then we set this aside.
Okay.
To anticipate this episode. So Delfina and Maria de Jesus were raised alongside two half-sisters, Maria Luisa and Carmen Gonzalez-Valenzuela. The four girls were desperately poor and horribly abused. Their father, Isidro Torres, was a brutal man feared not only by his daughters, but by the town of El Salto de Juanacatlan in Jalisco. Isidro was a member of the rural police who, shocker, abused the hell out of his authority as a policeman. It doesn't sound like every member of that police force did, but there's no such thing as a bad apple. So... he, the whole barrel is rotten. So, for example, when his daughters would anger him for such sins as trying to wear makeup,
he
would
God.
I know.
Such a sin.
You know
would
what?
imprison
Fuck this guy.
them.
I'm putting on more lipstick just to
Do
say
it.
fuck you to this
Reapply.
guy.
I am caked in sin right now.
Oh, yeah. I have a sin layer an inch thick on my face right now.
Highlighting sin.
I forgot my bronzer sin, but it's fine.
I didn't. So he would
I brought my
imprison
bag of
them,
sin.
sometimes for long stretches in the town jail cells. So he didn't ground them at home. He would put them in jail. Yep.
What a dick.
He's such a
It's
prick.
like those dads that shave their daughters' heads when they go on a
dye
date.
their hair or something. Yeah. So
that's
during an
fucked.
argument with another man, Isidro shot the man dead in the middle of town. Having made many enemies from his abusive practices, Isidro fled with his wife and children to San Francisco del Rincon, referred to as San Pancho by the locals. So as the sisters Delfina and Maria grew up, they became terrified of the poverty that they had lived in, and this poverty had led to such miserable lives for them and for their mother, and their father was so fucking awful. So they squirreled away as much money as they could and opened a saloon in San Pancho, which, though meager, did support them. The sisters quickly ventured into sex work and very quickly learned how easy it was to use sex or small amounts of cash to bribe local officials. So seeing an opportunity...
Yeah, they're realists.
Oh, yeah.
They're like Amanda.
Yep. Pretty much. Getting out of those blockbuster late
Save
fees
money on
back
taxes.
when that was a thing.
Snip, snip. Open a
snip.
saloon.
Get my tax marriage, get my
bribe.
vasectomy, get a saloon.
I don't know why you're dragging your feet.
Yeah, I mean, this is a win-win-win-win-win, sir. So seeing an opportunity, the sisters used their skills for manipulation and bribery to open up a series of underground brothels in several cities near Mexico City. They ran the bars in the cities with their sister Carmen and handed over the running of the brothel near the Mexican border to their sister Maria Luisa, known locally as the Leggy One.
Lucy.
So she was the pretty one.
I'm the leggy one.
You are the
you
leggy
are the
one in our
leggy
group.
one.
Yeah.
Kenyon's the booby one. Amanda's the blue head.
I'm the clowny one, and Lucy's the leggy one. I'm the
This is the
snaggly
mouthy
one.
one.
The mouthy one. The blue-haired little hoe.
Mouths, tits, legs.
We have all the
Feet.
necessary parts of a woman. So at this point, you might be
Collectively,
thinking,
we make one woman.
one usable woman.
Useful woman.
One functioning woman. So at this point, you might be thinking, like, okay, bad bitches, go get it. There's nothing wrong with some sex work to claw yourself out of poverty. Like, this is
Yep.
survival.
Absolutely.
Sex work is real work.
Fancy, this is your chance. Take it.
However, it is at this time that the sisters started to get real greedy. So this is not anymore
A survival
about
thing.
survival. It is an enterprise.
Got it.
And the supply of young women was not keeping up with the demand from their growing swarm of patrons. So Delphina and Maria started recruiting, quote unquote. Really?
Sex trafficking.
Yep. Really fucking aggressively. The sisters started going on extended hunting trips, driving far into the ranch lands surrounding their brothels, scouting farms, small towns, and ranches for beautiful girls like a couple of fucking fairy tale witches, which you can see them on the drive. They do look like fairy tale witches. And it really makes you wonder if not all of the legends of like witches and evil hags are just cruel sexist stereotypes, but that some are probably actually based on real events, which they certainly are.
Let's not demean witches.
No.
These are just two evil ladies.
Two evil women.
They
Yeah.
do look like classic folklore
That's what I'm saying.
witches.
They look like the patriarchal, like grisly fairy tale witch.
Yep.
That's why I even say that.
They have like, well, I guess they don't really have hooked noses, but basically everything.
That's all they're missing.
But yeah.
They've had hard lives, but then they turned to crime.
It just reminds me of, so obviously most people by this point have finished the HBO documentary series All Be Gone in the Dark. And I'm not giving anything away, but there's an amazing clip of an interview at the end with Patton Oswalt that made me just like ugly cry for 10 hours, where he's talking about how like seeing all of these survivors in a room together that were, you know, defiled by the Golden State Killer had every reason to take that experience and go out and like perpetuate more of that pain and that hate. And the ultimate fuck you to this guy was to not do that. And it's like, that's really fucking powerful. And obviously these women as girls were raised in extreme poverty and abuse and horrific conditions. It doesn't mean that that gives you a pass to do now what they do. It's really
definitely not.
fucked
and
up.
actually, I mean, women sex traffickers are very, very common. Like sometimes they're called like madams, but it's, you know, it's very common.
Well, it's like
So-
that Epstein chick.
That
I don't know how to say her first name. Ghislaine.
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 Nah, I'm never going to pronounce that properly as a sign of disrespect to that horrible woman.
The Lady Epstein.
Yeah. Mrs. Epstein.
Macbeth Epstein.
So when the sisters would find a suitably pretty girl, they would approach her using, you know, women's natural trust of other women, plus their natural abilities as manipulators to play on the rural girls' desire to like make it in the big city, get out of where they live, get out of poverty. They're, you know, they're dangling all these opportunities in front of them. Sometimes they were, quote unquote, rescuing these women from poverty or abusive families. Sometimes they were simply luring wide-eyed young women with promises and hope. They would convince these girls that they would be taking jobs as maids or waitresses. So they really thought they were just going to the city to get employment and like start a new life. Some of these young women refused the sisters and they would return for them later, kidnapping them in the night or in broad daylight with the help of an army captain whose name was Hermenegildo Zuniga.
Hermenegildo.
Who was one of Delphina's lovers and a henchman on their payroll.
Jesus.
Great. So they would just lure or kidnap.
And they had army generals, they had police, they had government officials.
They
like, this
are
was
a
big.
syndicate.
They're absolutely a syndicate.
Yeah, they're human traffickers.
So once these girls were in their grasp, they entered a world of absolute horror. And this is, I'm not even going into detail on the things, how brutalized these girls were, but I'm still going to say fucking trigger warning because this gets real violent. So they would determine the virginity of the girls and save those, like the more chaste young girls, for sale to special clients.
Liam Neeson's daughter in Taken.
Yep. While the others would be raped by the sisters' henchmen, beaten, terrorized, and showered with ice water in a sadistic hazing ritual that robbed most of the women of any will to escape, any will to fight back. It just broke them down completely. Like, it basically strips you of all of your identity, all of your hope, and now you're just an amorphous blob that they can control. So tortures such as standing for long periods of time holding heavy bricks were deployed to further break the women, and it should also be noted how young most of them were. I mean, I know we keep bringing back to this, but some of these gals were like between like 11 years old and 16 years old. They're very young.
They're children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Period.
So further measures were sometimes taken, forcing the girls to use cocaine and heroin until they were addicted, so that the Gonzalez sisters would have yet another invisible leash around their victims.
This is amazing. I mean, this still goes on today in the
100%.
exact same way.
Yep. This is
all over the world.
Yep. This was in this like the 60s, and this rings very, very true worldwide right now.
They were just tapping into an industry that already existed and still exists now.
Absolutely.
They're not uniquely
No.
horrific people.
No. So the girls were now the Gonzalez sister slaves, constantly watched over by their muscle, Zuniga, that army captain guy, who had the nickname the Black Eagle, and Ramon El Tepo Torres, who was actually Delfina's own son. So Ramon is Delfina's son. He's one of the henchmen as well as this army guy. And then their half-sister, who is also part of this kind of like running the saloons, etc., Carmen, that we mentioned earlier, she died in her 50s of cancer. So around this time that the whole trafficking ring is like really solid, and the sisters are still running all of these like underground brothels and their original saloon, Carmen dies. It's not long before the sisters were quite wealthy and feared in the community. Their clients included members of the army, councilmen, and police, and it seemed they were untouchable because they were being protected by all of these people who didn't want to be
Yeah,
caught.
because they're paying bribes and they're...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, and now they have the ultimate blackmail because a huge subset of their Johns are fucking higher-ups in the community and people in positions of power, so of course they're going to work with you to keep it quiet. So when one of the young women would become pregnant, the sisters developed a system of forced, like, at-home abortions and quite literally dumped these fetuses in the backyard, like in a shallow grave of, like, this big ranch that they were keeping all these girls on.
Just horrific.
It's fucking sick. And that's, you know, a lot of those girls getting these procedures also don't survive. And so they end up in those graves as well. So the Gonzalez sisters' ranch stronghold quickly began to resemble a concentration camp, with malnourished, gaunt women imprisoned within. If the malnourishment or rampant STIs or unsafe at-home abortions led to a girl being too sick to work or rendered her too ugly to clients of the brothels, the sisters had an answer for that too. So the girls would be locked into a room and simply starved to death, or in even more horrific cases, to continue to terrorize and brainwash the young women, would make the other girls beat the young women to death with sticks and heavy logs, so that they're making them culpable too. And like that's another layer of
also a common tactic, and a very common tactic when it comes to human trafficking for in conflict, like child soldiers.
Yeah. And it's just fucked up because then even if those folks wanted to try to get out of it, it's like,
now
well, look what you've done. You're going to be arrested and, you know, and sentenced to life in prison or whatever. So it's just another way to manipulate them into control.
I know that happens obviously very frequently in reality, but isn't there a scene in Handmaid's Tale where they kind of do the same thing? Don't all the girls have to...
They beat a man in The Handmaid's Tale. And it's used as like a social release valve. So it's used. It's still manipulation of the handmaids, but it's
not in the same arena as this.
It's not beating another woman. It's beating a man who has transgressed against certain rules and
It's like a purge.
Yeah, exactly.
And it wasn't beating him to death either, was it?
It was. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, that is fiction, and this is not.
Slightly different, but yeah, similar dynamic.
So the bodies were then piled and burned in mass graves, and the sisters did not discriminate when it came to violence. If they became aware that a John had come with a large amount of cash, they would sometimes just murder him, steal the cash, dump the body among the ever-growing graves. And these crimes were super hard to connect to the Gonzalezes because few Johns let anyone know that they were heading off to a brothel. So their whereabouts were rarely known. It's like the mid-60s. We don't have the internet. People just go missing.
Everyone's colluding to keep it a secret.
Exactly.
Well, you don't have cell phones. You can't be like, I'll text you when I get there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'd like to tell you that this reign of terror came to an end because of some action by a kind, caring society that brought light to the suffering of these women. But this is not the case.
But alas, it's 2020.
I mean 1962. So in 1962, Ramon El Tepo Torres, so Delfina's son and henchman, got into an argument with police inside one of the brothels and was shot down in a hail of gunfire and killed. The police then closed down that particular brothel, probably hoping that the matter would be closed, but it was not. Because Delfina now flew into a rage of vengeance for the murder of her son and ordered the army captain who frequented their brothels to hunt down the police who killed her son and kill them on sight, which he did.
Jesus Christ.
So now it's like a war in the streets, basically.
Yeah. Well, they're all, damn.
So a year later, Catalina Ortega, a young woman who had been tricked, pimped, and tortured by the Gonzalez sisters, managed to escape their ranch, which they called Loma del Angel, through a small gap in an exterior wall. The sisters' army captain, Zuniga, this guy.
The Black Eagle.
Yep. Hunted for her with other Gonzalez henchmen all through what must have been a fucking harrowing and nightmarish night for poor
Jesus.
Catalina, who was basically just chased through the darkness.
Wilderness, yeah.
So evading the Gonzalez's men who were planning to kill her on sight, Catalina managed to get to her mother and they went together to the police.
Who you can't trust.
Who you can't trust. Exactly. So many members of that very police station were on the sisters' payroll, but due to the increasing bad blood over murdered cops and a stroke of pure fucking luck with who was on shift that day, the Ortegas found police who were not under the sisters' control, and a search and arrest warrant against the Gonzalez sisters was finally issued on January 14th, 1964. They'd already been doing this for a decade at this point.
Holy shit.
The bravery that would have taken to involve your mother.
Yep.
Knowing
To escape in the first
with
place.
95% certainty that you'd both be killed.
Yep.
Oh, holy shit. That is so intense.
It's really intense. So when the police went through the ranch, arresting the sisters who were wearing black mourning veils over Delfina's slain son. So,
they
can you
care
imagine?
about that life.
Yeah.
No one else's life.
Exactly. But you arrive to, raid this horrifying
Hell
and
concentration camp brothel.
you're greeted by these two grizzled witches in black veils.
Don't say witches.
Well, grizzled
I got a lot of respect for witches. I don't have
grizzled
respect for these
monsters.
women.
Grizzled monsters.
Yeah.
Monsters.
In black veils. It's creepy. So they had to hold back a mob that had gathered at the gates to literally lynch these women, the sisters. Word of their kidnappings and forced prostitution had leaked out and outraged citizens. Parents of missing children and others crowded around wanting to dispense just total mob justice. And can you fucking blame them? No. You cannot.
I want to dispense mob justice.
Yep. So as angry as this mob was, no one could have imagined just how horrific what they would find in Loma del Angel would be.
Ugh.
So dozens of dirty, emaciated women were discovered by police and reporters in a single locked room, just piled in together.
In a pen, basically,
yeah.
because they were treated worse than animals.
Quite literally. The girls led them to where they should dig to find the bodies of the others who didn't survive. The police made the sisters stand by, and their henchmen were the ones forced to dig, while the entire time the sisters shouted obscenities and threats at their captors and accusers. The bodies of at least 91 women, men, and fetuses were found in the ground and within the walls of the ranch that day.
They ran out of ground space.
Yup. Now under heavy military guard, as the crowd was ravenous for blood, the women were suddenly at the center of the case of the century. Maria Luisa, the Gonzalez's half-sister, turned herself in, fearing the mobs. She was granted immunity in exchange for testifying against the other sisters, but was arrested and charged anyway in what was becoming an increasingly chaotic series of events. And quite frankly, she was complicit in all of this.
And then only after the discovery was made, she was like, I have information.
Right, after the mob was going to come and kill her, I'm sorry, no. You don't get fucking immunity to hand over sisters that have now already been caught.
Yeah.
So the trial was an absolute shit show, frequented by shouting, screaming, threats, insults, and yelling as a flood of former sex workers and regulars of the saloon were brought in accusing the sisters of everything from kidnapping, murder, and torture to forced bestiality and Satanism. The trial was a media sensation and circus, finally culminating in all three sisters on trial. So Delfina, Maria de Jesus, and their accomplice Maria Luisa were all sentenced to 40 years in jail. Which,
not enough.
Not even close.
Maria Luisa was the half-sister, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Maria Luisa died in her cell and was found on November 19th, 1984, her body already being devoured by rats.
That does not
kind
sound
of
like
a
a
fitting
jail you want to
end.
be in.
No.
Yeah,
very,
but also
very terrible conditions.
Yeah.
It's hard to feel sorry for.
Probably
for
still
these
better
women.
conditions than what they put those women through.
I
Women and
would
girls.
absolutely assume that to be true. Delfina Gonzalez, not mentally well at the best of times, went completely mad after the verdict. She never stopped screaming and ranting until on October 17th, 1968, as she was being transported back to her cell. Workers doing repairs above the jail looked down to catch a glimpse of the notorious criminal, and they tipped over a bucket of cement that fell directly onto Delfina's head, crushing her and killing her instantly.
Like on purpose?
Probably. It was never.
Probably.
It's deemed an accident, and I think it was entirely intentional. That's some
Wet
vigilante
cement
justice.
or dried, like
I
a
think
block?
dry. I mean, either way, that's
wet
a really
cement
heavy.
in a bucket is still really heavy. Yeah, exactly.
That sounds like a very swift and merciful death. Mm-hmm. And I would personally prefer to hear her to be eaten by rats. Again, I'm shouting in an office setting.
Right. Communal office.
So either they knew who she was and they wanted to kill her because, she's evil, and rightfully so, or she was being super fucking annoying, screaming and ranting while they were doing work, and they just shut her up.
I mean, these sisters at this point were
so
famous.
Yeah.
Exactly. That I think that they knew.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not coming for them.
Or both.
Yep. So Maria de Jesus was the only one to live through her incarceration, though it is unknown exactly when or why she was freed, but likely to avoid her being set upon by those seeking final judgment, because now these two other sisters had died. So they had mercy on her and let her go.
What? Who gives
I don't know.
a shit?
I know. So after serving her time, she lived in obscurity until her death sometime in the mid-90s, and there's very little reported about her, so we really just don't know.
Whoa.
It's likely that the sisters' final grisly total of murders needs to be amended by a deposit of about 20 skeletons that were unearthed in 2002 near the former ranch, bringing the total lives cost by their nightmare reign at minimum 110 people. And it very likely is actually more than that.
Oh my God.
Is that including the fetuses that the aborted ones?
I believe so. It's basically they counted anything that was found in those graves and walls.
Anything that was dead because of these women.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's no way to talk about these women, their crimes, and unimaginable suffering that they cause without, mentioning, as we have, the horrific poverty that led to the conditions where evils like this tend to ferment. Human trafficking is an absolute plague in all over the world, where poverty strips specific people of their identity and is so vulnerable populations are already preyed upon.
Yeah.
So I figured I'd just wrap this up with some resources. So if you're living in the U.S. and you witness, suspect, or are attempting to escape from human trafficking, the National Human Trafficking Hotline is a 24/7 resource. You can call 1-888-373-7888 or discreetly text the word HELP to 233-7333 to be matched with somebody who can assist you.
And also we have other resources, including
on our
human
website.
On our website, on our resources page.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
that's
this is the same pattern.
my case.
Oh, God. That was
I'm sad now.
Bad.
I need more wine.
I need ladyfingers ASAP.
Yeah.
I need sausage to get over this.
That was really dark. Yeah.
Fucking
need some sausage.
Brutal.
But also had never heard the
Yup.
extent of these women's
I had
reign
never
of
heard of
terror.
them.
Yeah, well,
Never heard of
like
them.
you said, we had they had come up so briefly in the past, and then we just didn't look into it. So I'm glad you covered it.
It's just wild how many of those quote unquote all these prolific killers you've never heard of.
Yeah.
It's like this shit, especially when it's violence against marginalized communities and violence against women, I feel like gets brushed under the rug and is not covered in the media. And I mean, obviously this is from the 60s, so it's not going to be popping up on our timelines right now anyway, but we do a lot of, cursory searches for these cases, and this didn't come up until research for a different case that was entirely unrelated other than the fact that it was about murderous family trees.
Right.
So it's just wild how much of this, tragic history is out there. We just we don't fucking know anything about it.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad that you covered it and brought it to our attention.
Well, there it is.
Special thanks this week to alcohol getting us through 2020.
Yep.
And also to
Keep up the good work, alcohol.
Yeah. Carrying a heavy load.
Not all heroes wear capes.
Yeah.
Don't need electricity to get really drunk in the dark.
Yep.
Turns out.
Sure don't. Also, special thanks to our fan picker, Emily Mitchell, and their twin sister, Amanda. Thank you both so much for sister crimes.
And just a quick reminder that we've reformatted our special thanks. So now we're just doing a monthly special thanks, sort of in the
Blowout
spirit of a drunk dive. We're going to
extravaganza.
get fucking wasted
We're
and
gonna
read
get plastered.
big old mega list of special thanks that is available on Patreon. So the special thanks folks that may have received a message that yours would be in this episode, it will be in the August special thanks mega list available on Patreon.
And if you're not already a patron, join, because that's where you'll be able to see video episodes for the
Absolutely.
foreseeable future.
And other content. Lots of content on
yeah.
Patreon.
So much
Lots.
content.
All right,
All right.
thanks so much.
Mwah.
We'll see you
Bye-bye.
next week.